G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Well, Kyle, thanks so much for making the time to catch up. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So, Kyle, your business is called Elevate and Scale, and you're really an expert in email marketing. I guess from what I've picked up, you typically work with e-commerce businesses and service businesses seem to be the biggest segment. And
that's right.
You know, as I mentioned as we were talking before, I'm really excited about this discussion because personally I see email marketing as a really important plank of any marketing strategy these days. Some people may look at it as a little bit old school, but I just see it to be a really effective way of keeping in touch with customers, both current and prospect, I guess. So I might just throw it over to you just to, I guess, add anything to that introduction, but also really interested to understand why is it that customers come and work with you, and what's typically the problem they're looking to solve?
Okay, yeah. So we offer, I take a holistic approach to retention marketing. So we're doing email marketing, SMS marketing, as well as creating and managing rewards program. But I will say that all of that really just revolves around the email marketing. And so businesses will typically approach us. Usually there's one of three camps. So they aren't doing any email marketing yet, and they know they should be. Or they're already doing email marketing, probably managing it themselves. It's getting to the point where they know they could be getting better results, but they don't have the time to dedicate to it, or maybe they don't have the expertise, and they don't want to dedicate to learning how to do that. Or in the third camp, they have someone else doing their email marketing, but it's being mismanaged. They don't like how the content represents their brand, or they're just not getting results. And they want it done right. So that's usually how the conversation starts, with one of those three things. And like you said, everyone knows about email marketing to some extent. So it's definitely on most business owners' radar. But what a lot of people don't realize, like you said, is I think it gets overlooked because it always has been on everyone's radar, and it's not the new exciting, sexy thing like TikTok or, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that just because people aren't as excited about it now doesn't mean that it's not a very profitable, very reliable sales channel that you absolutely should be prioritizing, as quickly as possible in your business journey. And I think that's what, once people really see the potential there, that's what starts to open their minds towards, okay, I had no idea that I was just sitting on this asset that I had been building up that had all this untapped potential.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, when a client comes to work with you, what's the typical process that you would take them through? And, I guess sounds like you might have slightly different process for different parts of the market, but generally speaking, how do you work with clients?
Okay, so I break email into two categories, where you've got the automation side, and then you've got the ongoing email marketing, so the emails you're sending out. So the first place we start with is the automation side. And what we do is we first want to look at the sales process for that business, meaning the step-by-step process that someone takes to go from being a stranger to being a customer. So for an e-commerce business, they might land on the website, they view a product, add it to cart, they do step 1 of the checkout, step 2 of the checkout, and they're done. A service business is going to be a little different. There might be some sales calls. You might have to have some manual follow-up in there. But what we're looking for is, once we've broken down that sales process, you can then depending on the tools you're using, you can add automated email follow-up in between every step in your sales process. And that's the low-hanging fruit right there, where you
Right.
can immediately get better conversions. And that's just going to make you more profitable with what you're investing into your top of funnel traffic. Because most businesses are, when it comes to their marketing, they're spending the most time, money, energy, effort into getting traffic and getting attention to their business in the first place. But if they don't have these automations set up and their sales process is just leaking all this revenue
Mm.
that they just don't even know is there, because a lot of times they're not even looking at the analytics to realize, like, oh man, we have so many people who just abandon their cart, and that's a very simple sequence to get set up. Even at a very basic level, without much effort, you can get some pretty good results from that without even being a great marketer, right? Because it's just that person is so close to the purchase. So once we've got the sales process optimized, then I would say, like, more like phase two, assuming that they didn't already have that, is now looking at the ongoing email marketing. So we would have already, prior to this, we would have already wanted to come up with a content strategy for all of the emails in general. But the automated emails, a lot of that is going to be a lot of the evergreen topics, answering questions, objections, that kind of stuff. Whereas the ongoing email marketing is a little bit more pressure on you as the business owner or the marketer who's managing this, because you have to keep coming up with new topics. And that's where we like to use segmentation. And then we like to come up with topics that are really relevant to your ideal customers, but also relevant to what you're selling. And that's where we can actually see more of the upside from email marketing, because if you're not sending every email to everyone on your list, and you're using segmentation and you're personalizing these emails, you can end up actually sending more emails, but not everyone receives every email. And because you're sending more emails, you can get more revenue from your email marketing.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I hadn't thought of it in that way, but yeah, I could see that would put a bit of pressure back on the business owner to be coming up with new topics. So,
That's a big hang up for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, they have different reasons why they might be intimidated to do email marketing for their business. A lot of people have this idea that they're annoyed by the emails they get. So when they sit down to write an email, they're approaching it with the attitude of, oh, I don't want to annoy people. And if you sit down to write thinking that, it's just hard to be confident in what you're writing and to write something interesting and exciting. That's one big thing. But the other thing is, people, they're not afraid of annoying them. They just don't know what to say. And like, they just haven't really thought through, and maybe no one's shown them a process for coming up with ideas for emails. And so it just prevents them from doing it at all. And I would encourage people to, if you are managing it yourself, to just get started. Just try to be thoughtful about your ideal customers, going back to some of the marketing fundamentals of buyer persona research, or there's different terminology for that. Some people call them customer avatars, or whatever, but do some of that stuff. Try to get in the head of your ideal buyers. And now just don't be afraid to start sending those emails, and just know that the first email you send, or the second one, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to hit a home run, but you're going to learn as you go, because you'll get feedback, because you'll look at the metrics and see if they opened and clicked and bought, and you'll be able to adapt on the fly. And it's easier to learn than you think.
I think that's excellent advice. And certainly you've touched on some really common barriers that I see when I'm working with clients, and we start talking about email marketing. So no, that makes a lot of sense. So let me throw an example at you of a client that I've done some work with in the past, and perhaps you can tell me how you would approach working with a client like this. So essentially, they've got a bricks and mortar store. They bought into it a couple of years ago, and it does home brewing supplies. So beers and spirits and even wines and things like that. Over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, they've set themselves up with a e-commerce store to complement the bricks and mortar. And they see this as really the future of the business in terms of their ability to scale the business up, because all of a sudden they're not geographically tightly limited by who can drive an hour to their store. I guess they've struggled a little bit to get traction with the e-commerce store. They have a database of clients that have come and shopped with them over the years, and they're trying to sort of attract some new names. They haven't gone down the email marketing route just yet, but I think they're starting to recognize they probably need to. If they were to approach you, how would you work with a client like that? How could you help them, I guess, build their website traffic and their sales?
Okay, so I love this type of business because it's a hobby, it's a passion that people have. So they're not going to get tired of you marketing to them. These people are like, they want more, right? They always want more. So
it's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's a
yeah,
great
so
way to frame it.
Exactly. So that's a great thing to have already. So because that gets the whole deal of, oh, am I emailing too much? Not that you should be, blasting emails every day, but that's, again, it kind of removes that barrier. But okay, so the first thing is, so a lot of times it's a different mindset. It's a different type of business going from brick and mortar to e-com. So a lot of times brick and mortar people, they have the old school idea of if you build it, they will come. And so maybe they've invested in a great location, or they've done something where they get a lot of foot traffic into their store, and they think that will translate to online, where if you have a really nice website and everything's branded just right, that you're going to get all this traffic. And as we know, it's just a different game, no one knows your site exists if you're not really actively going out there and bringing people to the site.
Yes.
So first thing is, if they even have that idea, the first problem to solve is just getting traffic to the site. So, and the quickest way is running ads. So I'm not an expert on running ads. We don't offer that service. I like to defer to other people for that, but that is if you don't have traffic coming to your site, you're not going to be able to build your email list beyond the emails you've already acquired from your customers in person.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. So they first have to do that. They have to understand that this is going to be something where they're investing in it upfront. They can't rely on their in-person customers to really drive this e-commerce business. And part of that is, it's not that some of those people won't shop online. It's just that a lot of them won't, because depending on if there's shipping, if they charge for shipping or not, and they're going to be thinking, well, I live 20 minutes away, why wouldn't I just go get it today? And also that type of buyer, because they can go into the store, they might like to actually physically hold the things. So it's just different. You just can't rely on those customers to drive your e-com. So then once you've got some sort of consistent traffic source, and again, buying ads is the quickest way. This being a hobby passion play would be great for social media content, creating organic social media content, creating YouTube videos, doing podcasts like this. There's a lot of ways, but again, it's just different. The brick and mortar business owner often doesn't naturally think to do those things, but so they have to think like, I need to force attention to my site. But once they are getting people to the site, now it's actually a lot simpler. So you want to have a pop-up on your site. So it could be as simple as just a 10% off coupon. It doesn't even have to be a coupon. Could be a free guide on brewing, or like a free something that's going to help them get started. Or if they're more intermediate, something that's more, catered towards an intermediate home brewer. But get them into your email list, and then have a welcome series set up for whenever people opt into that pop-up, they go into this welcome series. That welcome series is going to convert a lot of those initial first-time purchases. And in this welcome series, you want to give them the coupon or whatever they signed up for, but it's really important that you deliver some of those key messages about, what sets your brand apart, what sets your products apart, what's your brand story, what are you all about. You want to really, this is your time to make that first impression. And it's a lot of times people won't really read everything on your site, and you don't want to make these emails long, but they will, if they're interested and they signed up and you give them that coupon, they will actually read through these first couple of emails. This is where we tend to do a little bit longer emails and give them more information. And then honestly, a lot of people will convert just from that first email in that welcome series. Then again, go through the process we talked about earlier, of adding in the different automations through the sales process. And then that's where you get into your ongoing email marketing. So now you're going to be sending out emails to these e-com specific people and to your local people. And you don't want to neglect your local people. So one thing that's great about email is you can use that to bring in foot traffic to your business. So you can, if you're hosting events at your store, if you're hosting any kind of sale at your store, if you've got maybe some inventory has been sold out and people have been wanting, a particular ingredient, and now you've got it back in stock, let everyone know through email. That way they're all coming back to your store, and you can actually segment those people out where you're only sending those emails to people who live locally. And you're sending the more e-com based emails to everyone, or to, different segments that aren't based on location. Great. But then it's just ongoing email marketing from there. But so again, it's like, I think the big thing is just the mindset of understanding that this e-com, it's an extension of your business, but in a way it's kind of a separate business as far as how you approach it.
Yep.
But then also not forgetting about your brick and mortar people and including them in this whole strategy.
Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Really insightful. So appreciate walking through that case study. Tell me about some of the differences in approach to, for example, business to business sales, and perhaps less e-commerce and more on the service side. What are some of the key differences you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with a different sector like that?
Okay, so when you're doing email marketing for consumer facing brands, a lot of times, you don't have to use, or actually you don't even want to use a whole lot of copy. It's a lot more visual. You're relying on more pretty graphics, being catchy, fun stuff like that. In the business to business world, you should assume that these people understand all the little tricks in marketing. Even if they don't, you should just assume that they do. Yeah. They are being sold to more aggressively typically than consumers are. So I find that being gimmicky and all that stuff, you don't want to go down that route. A lot of times people will try to just force opens with gimmicky subject lines. You don't want to go down that route. This is where you want to have good copy, and we don't usually do a lot of design or heavily designed emails with B2B emails. This is like, look, assume that they're in on the game with you. Give them the most important information that they need to make a buying decision, especially if we're dealing with early on in the sales process. So all the emails that are tied to getting them onto a sales call and following up from the sales call and all that kind of stuff. You want to be giving them all the information they need to answer any questions they might have that they might not even know they have, addressing their sales objections in your email content, giving them reviews and case studies so that way they can, get an idea of what it's been like for other people who have worked with you. Those are huge. Granted, those are, reviews are huge no matter what kind of business, but yeah, it's really going to come down to, I find there's a little bit more pressure on the copywriting and having good copy, and to not really even pay much attention to the design side of emails. But other than that, there are similar strategies, but different in how the outcome just looks a little different. So you're still trying to optimize your sales process. Yes. You're still doing ongoing email marketing where you've got to, keep coming up with ways to talk about your service, but tie it to a recent news event or something that keeps it interesting, right? You always have to have something kind of interesting to start the conversation of the email. But the email looks different, it reads different, and you're talking to a different audience, and you want that to be clear. It should show, like if I receive an email from an agency or something versus a brand that's trying to sell me clothes, it should look and read and feel very different.
Yeah, that makes heaps of sense. Great. So if a business owner had to take one thing away from this conversation today, and I know it's always a difficult one just to try and boil it down to one thing, but what do you think they should keep in mind when they get back to the office and they want to implement some email marketing?
Okay. The first thing I would say to do, and this is especially if you don't really have much automation set up, is to audit your sales process. So first, just go through, like we talked about earlier, map out your sales process step by step, go and look at your analytics and see how many people end up at each step, so that way you can see where the biggest drop off is. And where you see the biggest drop off in your sales process, that's where the biggest low hanging fruit opportunity is for you right now. So meaning, like, you could actually get an email sequence set up. Say it's Monday morning, you do this, you could get that email sequence set up this week and be converting more sales from your sales process this week just by getting that implemented, right? And eventually you'd want to add, try to optimize the whole sales process, but just for the sake of, starting with one action item that they could actually, like, implement very quickly. That's the first place I would do, is just audit your sales process, look for one or two steps where you're seeing the most drop off from people who don't make it to the next step, and look at, even if you can't automate it, how can you add some follow-up in your sales process for that part? And you're just going to be more efficient with the lead flow that you have right now.
I think that's a fantastic point. It's one I probably haven't given enough thought to, but it makes heaps of sense. So
it's one of those things where, we always get caught up working in the business and we forget to make time to work on the business. And I'm guilty of it too. We all are. It's like, that's why I bring it up, is because I see it over and over, that this is something where once I walk someone through it, they're like, I can't believe I didn't do this on my own.
Yeah.
Or I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. It's like, yeah, I know, we all do it.
Great. And so look, if people are, I guess, looking to find out a bit more about you and your work, what's the best way to get in touch with you and find out more?
Okay. You can find me on social media everywhere, Elevate and Scale. The best place to get in touch and really learn more is to go to winbeforeyousend.com. And I've got a checklist that you can download that will show you how to send campaigns that get more sales and engagement. And it will save you time by giving you a step-by-step process you can follow to plan and create and send those campaigns. And that way you can grow your email marketing to be your most reliable sales channel.
Awesome. So that was winbeforeyousend.com.
That's right. Yeah. The idea is, if you do these things, that you will be, the email will be a winner before you even send it out, because you've got it prepared correctly. So
brilliant. Love it. We'll be looking that up straight away.
All right.
Kyle, thanks so much. I really appreciate the chat. That was really insightful, and I look forward to exploring this topic a bit further.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.